The But-Ugly Duckling. An ugly duckling wishes his life was over when he is bullied and rejected by everyone, including his own family. Will his fortunes take a turn for the better when he runs away to the big city? Once upon a time, in a park by a motorway, stood some swings overlooking a humble duck pond. In the middle of the pond lay an island of grass and floating bottles, and it was here that a duck sat on her nest of plastic bags, hatching her ducklings. After a seemingly endless month, one after the other the eggshells started to crack, and the little ducklings quacked as they emerged from their eggs. "I do hope you all hatched," the mother duck said as she got up to inspect the emptying nest, but the largest egg still remained. "How much longer will this take? My behind is killing me," she moaned, but dutifully settled back on her nest. At long last the final egg did crack. "Peep!" croaked the duckling, and out he tumbled. But, unlike his brothers and sisters, he was big and ugly, with a great fat head. The mother duck stared at him. "State of that," she muttered. "He certainly is a but-ugly one. I'll shove him in the water and see if he can float with that huge head." But when she booted the but-ugly duckling into the pond, he swam well enough. "Dear me," she thought sadly, "what a hideous kid. I probably shouldn't have smoked all those fags when I was pregnant." The next day the weather was lovely, and the sun shone down on the crisp packets floating in the duck pond. "Right, you lot," shouted the mother duck. "Get in the pond and start swimming around. I want to watch a bit of Kyle in peace." The water went up over the ducklings' heads, but they all came up straight away as they floated and started swimming around. The mother duck settled down to watch the telly, and she was particularly enjoying a segment about a thieving robin who refused to sort his life out, when she heard a tremendous splashing and looked out at the pond. There she saw her ducklings jumping up and down on the but-ugly one as if they were trying to drown him. "Stop that!" she quacked furiously. She splashed over to the ducklings and began lathering them about their heads with her wing. "Oh, but Mum," whined one of the ducklings, "why do we have to hang out with him? Look how but-ugly he is. All the starlings are laughing at us." And it was true. At the water's edge several starlings were gathered, smoking cigarettes and laughing noisily at the unfortunate duckling. "You but-ugly bastard," squawked one, while another threw mud in its direction, which made them laugh all the more. "Don't make me come over there," hissed the mother duck, who jabbed a cigarette end in their direction, and the starlings fell quiet, save for the odd snigger. With a sigh the mother duck marched indoors, switched the TV off, and joined her children in the water, swearing under her breath. She led her brood of ducklings across to the other side of the pond, where two squirrels were fighting over a discarded piece of chewing gum. "My word," said one squirrel, "look at the state of that big but-ugly one in the end." "Kid looks like a fat pigeon, innit?" giggled the other. "Can't we just leave him here, Mum?" said one of the other ducklings. "Our life's going to be a joke at this rate." "Shut it," grumbled the mother, but she was glaring at the but-ugly duckling, secretly wishing she could do just that. So it went on the first day, and from there things only went from bad to worse. The poor duckling was chased and ridiculed by everyone. Even his own mother pretended not to notice when his siblings and the other animals taunted him. One day some boys came to the pond and started throwing stones at the ducks. The mother duck and the ducklings fled to the safety of the shopping trolley at the far end of the pond, but the but-ugly duckling, who was so tired of being laughed at, decided to put an end to it all. He swam towards the nasty boys. However, when they saw him, instead of hurling stones, the boys clutched their sides and started laughing. So but-ugly was the but-ugly duckling. In desperation, he made up his mind to run away, so he gathered up a few breadcrumbs and waddled away across the park. The wasps in the rubbish bin darted away from him in fright because he was so damned but-ugly. But he carried on waddling with his large head bowed. He walked for days and days. Cars splashed him, dogs barked at him, and he was near to collapse from exhaustion when he stumbled on a very strange spectacle indeed. Outside a tall building, a collection of the most curious birds he had ever seen was gathered together in a vast flock. A peacock in a straw wig danced and pirouetted. A shaved, featherless magpie with an earring and a bizarre accent smoked cigarettes and flexed its wings. An owl with purple feathers screamed and squealed in a high-pitched voice. "What are they all doing?" the but-ugly duckling wondered as he walked past with his head hanging low for fear of people seeing him and laughing. "Hey, look at that one over there!" a voice suddenly shouted. The but ugly one with the fat head. The duckling felt bitter tears sting his eyes, and he waddled onwards, but the shouting did not stop. "Get it in here!" screamed the voice. "It's perfect!" Before the but ugly duckling knew what was happening, two slick-looking crows with trendily cut feathers had him by each wing, and were hustling into a large room with cameras watching from all four corners. "Do something!" demanded one of the crows. "Sing or dance. Do something funny." Finally, the but ugly duckling could take no more. "Just leave me the fucking fuck alone, you nasty fucking wankers," he quacked at the top of his voice, and a great silence filled the room. "That," said one of the crows, "is perfect. That is genius." "Sign here," said the other crow as he thrust a piece of paper at the but ugly duckling. The next thing the duckling knew, he was being taken to an island in the middle of a great lake, where there dwelled a group of the strangest birds he had ever seen. There was a pigeon who swore constantly, and a wren who kept removing her feathers. And there was an aggressive paranoid rook and a heron with enormous wing muscles and a pierced nipple, and they all behaved outrageously, squawking and squabbling and drinking. The poor duckling, who was only from a small pond, was very confused by their behaviour and tried to escape, but he found that a great fence encircled the island. Every evening the birds would gather together, and it seemed to the but ugly duckling that he was there for their sport, for many of them were impolite towards him and took great pleasure in mocking his ugliness. Confused and upset, the but ugly duckling would let fly with the same rage and terrible language that had come from the bottom of his heart on that day he arrived in the city. When he quacked in anger, he sometimes imagined he heard a roaring from behind the tall fence, which he thought must be the roaring of some terrible bird-eating monster, for gradually he noticed that the other birds were vanishing from the island, one by one. One day the but ugly duckling awoke and found that he was the only bird left. This put fear into his heart, for he thought that whatever had made that terrible roaring noise would now come for him, having left him to be eaten last only because he was so damned but ugly. Once again the roaring grew louder, until suddenly a great door opened up in the fence. Resigned to his fate, the but ugly duckling waddled through it, only to emerge in the middle of a heaving crowd of birds, at the centre of which was a jackdaw with a microphone. "Congratulations! You've won Series 4 of You're Being Watched," shouted the jackdaw. "Everybody scream for the but ugly duckling who won our hearts." "Is this another cruel mockery?" said the but ugly duckling suspiciously, wearing his sadness on his face for all to see. "You've won," repeated the jackdaw. "What? Were you expecting to turn into a swan or something? Come on, you're a star. Apparently your ugliness and foul mouth have completely endeared you to the public. Look, here's 1,000,000 groats, a book deal, and your own aftershave range." The but ugly duckling felt so very happy. He thought about how he had been persecuted and scorned his whole life, and yet now suddenly here was this jackdaw telling him that he was wealthy and popular. He rustled his feathers and held his big head high and cried out, "I've never dreamed of such happiness." "And that's not all," said the jackdaw. "You'll be coming back for our celebrity edition with all the stars. You could go global if you don't do anything stupid." The end. Don't forget to like and subscribe and press the wee bell notification. And a huge big thank you to all my subscribers and patrons. See you next week. Bye bye.